I stood frozen in our living room, staring at the ordinary-looking package on our coffee table that had arrived just minutes ago. It was wrapped in cheerful birthday paper with a card that read, "From Mom and Dad with love." After 8 years of silence, my estranged parents had suddenly sent me a birthday gift. But it was my husband Jack's reaction that made my blood run cold. "Claudia, don't open it," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "What? Why not?" I asked, confused by his sudden alarm. His eyes never left the package. "Can't you see it?" he whispered. I looked closer at the seemingly innocent box and noticed a tiny pinhole with something metallic glinting inside. My stomach dropped as I spotted an almost imperceptible ticking. I didn't open it. I called the police instead. 30 minutes later, officers were swarming our home, and I wondered if I'd ever escape my parents' destructive influence. I had once been the proud daughter of Thomas and Eleanor Wright, respected financial advisors in our small Connecticut community. My childhood memories were filled with comfortable family dinners, summer vacations to Maine, and the warm security that comes from believing your parents are good, honest people. That security shattered when I was 16. I discovered the truth by accident. While working on a school project about local businesses, I found discrepancies in some financial records my father had carelessly left open on his computer. What started as teenage curiosity turned into a horrifying revelation. My parents had been running elaborate investment scams, targeting elderly clients and vulnerable families. They'd destroyed lives while building our comfortable existence. When I confronted them, expecting denial or at least remorse, I received something worse: justification. "The system is rigged anyway," my father said. "We're just playing the game smarter." My mother added, "Everyone in finance does it, sweetie. It's how the world works." But I knew it wasn't how the world should work. Despite their pressure to stay quiet, I anonymously reported what I'd found to financial authorities. The investigation that followed tore our family apart. My parents never discovered I was the whistleblower, but they lost their licenses, paid massive fines, and narrowly avoided prison through plea deals and restitution agreements. They blamed jealous competitors for their downfall. I carried the weight of my secret betrayal through my remaining high school years, moving out the day after graduation. The following 8 years brought occasional attempts at reconciliation from my mother, but each conversation revealed they still felt justified in their actions. Eventually, the calls stopped altogether. I built a new life for myself. My accounting degree came with a personal commitment to financial ethics. That's how I met Jack Carter, a cybersecurity specialist who consulted for my firm. Jack represented everything my parents weren't: honest, straightforward, and deeply ethical. When we married 2 years ago, I didn't invite my parents to the wedding. Jack became my family. Our life together in the suburbs of Hartford was purposefully ordinary and honest. Until today, my 32nd birthday, when the package arrived bearing my parents' names. "How did you notice something was wrong with it?" I asked Jack as we stood in our kitchen, maintaining a safe distance from the living room where the package Saturday. "The postmark is strange," Jack said, running a hand through his dark hair. "And there's a faint odor, but mainly it's the pinhole. That's not normal packaging damage." His cybersecurity work had made him vigilant about unusual details. "And look through the pinhole, there's something electronic inside." I peered closer without touching it, and saw what appeared to be a tiny light and something that looked disturbingly like a timer. Cold fear washed over me. Whatever reconciliation my parents might want, this wasn't it. "I'm calling the police," I said, backing away and reaching for my phone. Jack nodded grimly. "Tell them it might be an explosive device." As I dialed 911 with shaking hands, the question hammered in my mind. After all these years, had my parents graduated from financial crimes to something far more sinister? And why target me now? The next half hour passed in a blur. Police cars arrived with silent lights, followed by a bomb squad van that parked directly in front of our house. Officers evacuated the neighbors on either side of us, while specialists in heavy protective gear entered our living room. Detective Lisa Harmon, a stern-faced woman with prematurely gray hair, questioned us in the safety of a police cruiser parked down the street. You believe your parents sent this? She asked, her pen poised over a notepad. The package has their names on it, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But we haven't been in contact for years. Tell me about the estrangement. I gave her the abbreviated version of my parents' financial crimes and our subsequent falling out. Jack held my hand throughout, his thumb tracing reassuring circles on my skin. And to your knowledge, have they ever been involved with anything beyond financial fraud? Any connections to radical groups, international organizations, anything like that? No, I said, then hesitated. At least, not that I know of. We haven't spoken in a long time. The detective's radio crackled to life. Detective, you're going to want to see this. The voice sounded puzzled rather than urgent. 20 minutes later, we were permitted to return to our house under escort. The bomb technicians had moved the package to a specialized container outside, but the team leader was waiting for us in the living room, helmet removed. It's not an explosive device, he said, his expression bemused. It's something I've never seen in civilian hands before. Some kind of surveillance package cameras, microphones, and what appears to be data collection hardware. Detective Harmon frowned. Like a spy device? More sophisticated. This is corporate espionage-level equipment. Military-grade, even. He turned to us. Does either of you work with sensitive information? Government contracts? Valuable intellectual property? Jack stiffened beside me. I do cybersecurity for defense contractors. The detective's attention sharpened. Which ones? Nexus Systems is my main client right now. We're implementing new security protocols for their satellite communications division. That would certainly make you a valuable target, the bomb technician said. A new officer entered, carrying a plastic evidence bag. Inside was what looked like a small SIM card. We found this hidden in the device's transmission unit, he reported. Based on the activation timestamp, it's been running for approximately 6 hours. 6 hours? Jack repeated, alarmed. The package just arrived. The device was activated before delivery, Detective Harmon said grimly. Someone has been monitoring this package, and likely its destination for hours. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implication became clear. You mean someone's been watching us? Listening to us? It seems that way, Mrs. Carter. And they may still be watching. I recommend you and your husband find somewhere else to stay tonight, while we secure your home and trace this signal. As we packed overnight bags under police supervision, one thought kept circling in my mind. If the package truly came from my parents, what game were they playing? And if it didn't, if someone had merely used their names, then who was targeting us? And why use my estranged family as cover? The most disturbing possibility was that my parents had become involved with something far more dangerous than financial fraud. Something that had now arrived on my doorstep, disguised as a birthday reconciliation. We spent a restless night in a hotel downtown, both of us barely sleeping. By morning, Detective Harmon had news. The surveillance package has been linked to a group known for corporate espionage, she told us over coffee in the hotel restaurant. They typically work for foreign interests targeting American technology. And my parents? I asked, dreading the answer. She consulted her notes. Thomas Wright's name appears on an FBI watch list in connection with several international money transfers to known shell companies in the Cayman Islands and Singapore. Companies associated with this same group. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. So they are involved. It appears they may be facilitating financial transactions for these operations. Whether willingly or under coercion, we don't yet know. Jack reached for my hand under the table. What happens now? We've arranged for digital security specialists to sweep your home and vehicles for additional devices. But I should warn you, your residence is likely compromised. They know your routines, possibly your security measures. We could stay with my sister, Jack suggested. Tara lives about 30 minutes away in West Hartford. I nodded numbly. Tara had never quite warmed to me, perhaps sensing the family secrets I kept closely guarded. But we had few options. Detective Harmon agreed to the arrangement, but assigned a plainclothes officer to maintain surveillance of Tara's neighborhood. We were potential targets now, and possibly leads to something bigger. Before leaving, I asked the question that had been haunting me. Detective, why would my parents do this? Target their own daughter? Her expression softened slightly. In my experience, Mrs. Carter, people with compromised ethics usually follow a pattern. They start with smaller breaches, white lies, minor fraud, and escalate when those boundaries don't hold. The jump from financial crime to espionage isn't as large as you might think, especially when significant money is involved. Once alone with Jack, I felt the weight of what was happening crashing down on me. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "My family is putting you in danger." Jack pulled me into an embrace. "You are not your parents, Claudia. You never have been." At Tara's house that evening, the reception was chilly but polite. Her husband Paul was away on business, another cybersecurity specialist, though working for a competing firm to Jack's. Their modern home, with its pristine white furniture and minimalist decor, felt sterile compared to the cozy space Jack and I had created together. "So your parents are criminals," Tara said bluntly over dinner, after we'd explained a sanitized version of our situation. "And now they're spying on you?" "We don't know exactly what's happening yet," Jack interjected before I could respond. "Well, I hope whatever it is doesn't affect your work. Paul says Nexus is on edge already with the upcoming government review." Jack's fork paused midway to his mouth. "How would Paul know about that?" "The review schedule is classified." Tara waved dismissively. "Oh, you know how the industry talks. Competitors always know each other's business." The comment lingered awkwardly as we finished eating. Later, alone in the guest bedroom, I opened my laptop and began searching for information about my parents' current activities, something I deliberately avoided for years. Their financial advising business had been rebranded and rebuilt after the scandal. Surprisingly, they appeared successful again, with offices in 3 states. Their client list included several international businesses with names I didn't recognize. One photo showed my father shaking hands with a man identified as Viktor Petrov, CEO of Eastern Continental Investments. I searched for information on Petrov and found sparse details: Russian-born, naturalized American citizen, connected to various technology investment funds. Something about his carefully constructed biography felt hollow, like a facade. A knock on the bedroom door interrupted my research. Jack entered, his expression troubled. "I just got a call from my director at Nexus," he said quietly. "The security protocols I've been implementing? They're for a new satellite encryption system that's being deployed next month. Extremely sensitive. If compromised, it could expose military communications across the globe." I closed my laptop. "And someone's trying to get to it through you. Through us." "It seems that way." He sat heavily on the bed. "Claudia, I need to tell you something I wasn't authorized to share before. I think someone at Nexus might be compromised, an insider helping these people. That's why the new security is compartmentalized. Very few people know the full system." "Including you?" "Including me." His voice dropped further. "I think that's why we've been targeted, and why they might be using your parents to get to us." A chill ran through me as a new possibility emerged. Or my parents are being used too. Maybe even threatened. For all their ethical failures, my parents had always operated independently, avoiding partnerships or outside control. If they were working with international espionage rings, something had changed dramatically, or they were being coerced. As if confirming my suspicions, my phone buzzed with an email from an anonymous account. The subject line read simply, "Stop digging if you want them safe." I showed Jack the message, watching his face harden. "Whoever is behind this," he said, "they're watching us very closely. We need to be extremely careful." That night, I lay awake beside Jack, haunted by the possibility that my parents, for all their flaws, might be in danger because of their connection to me. The irony was bitter. After years of protecting myself from their destructive influence, I now worried about protecting them from something worse. 3 days passed in tense seclusion at Tara's house. Jack worked remotely, deliberately accessing only unclassified systems. I took emergency leave from my accounting firm, claiming a family crisis which wasn't far from the truth. Detective Harmon called each evening with updates. Our home had yielded 4 additional surveillance devices, professionally installed within the past month. Our cars were clean, but my office had been compromised as well. The investigation into my parents' activities continued, but the detective was circumspect about details. "We believe they're operating under some form of coercion," she finally admitted on the 3rd day. "Financial trails suggest large withdrawals, followed by immediate transfers to offshore accounts. Classic patterns of blackmail or extortion." The confirmation of my suspicions brought little comfort. I thought of the threatening email and wondered how to proceed without endangering my parents further. I reached out to my college friend Megan Sullivan, now a banking security analyst, asking her to discreetly examine some financial records for me. I sent her the names of my parents' business partners and the companies I'd identified in my research. Her reply came faster than expected. "These are serious people, Claudia. Eastern Continental is a front for what we believe is state-sponsored technology acquisition. Not the kind of folks who play by normal rules. Call me as soon as possible." When I called, Megan's usual cheerful tone was replaced with professional concern. "Your parents' company has processed over $20 million in transactions for Eastern Continental subsidiaries in the past year alone," she explained. "The pattern suggests money laundering, but with a twist they're being sloppy, leaving traces that no experienced financial criminal would leave." Meaning they want to get caught? Or they're being forced to do this and leaving breadcrumbs? Either way, they're in deep with people who don't tolerate mistakes or betrayal. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. If my parents were being blackmailed, likely with threats of exposure for past crimes and forced to launder money for corporate spies, the surveillance package might not have been meant as an attack. Could it have been a warning? A way to alert me to the danger without explicitly telling me? I was contemplating this possibility when another anonymous email arrived. "Final warning. Walk away or they suffer. You have 24 hours." I showed it to Jack, who immediately called Detective Harmon. Her response was swift. "We're increasing security on your location. Do not respond to the email. We're attempting to trace it, but these people are using sophisticated anonymizing techniques." After the call, Jack became intensely protective, almost controlling. He insisted I stay inside, away from windows. He checked in repeatedly when he worked in another room. His worry was understandable, but stifling. "I think my parents might be trying to warn me," I told him that evening, sharing my theory about the surveillance package. Jack's expression darkened. "Or that's what they want you to think. Your parents have manipulated you before, Claudia." "This feels different," I insisted. "The detective said they're likely being coerced. And what if they're playing both sides? Using this situation to worm their way back into your life?" His voice rose slightly. "These are people who scammed elderly clients without remorse. They're still my parents. They're criminals who might have put us in the crosshairs of international espionage." Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I'm sorry, but I don't trust them. And neither should you." His reaction seemed extreme, even accounting for the stress we were under. A new suspicion formed in my mind. "Jack, is there something you're not telling me about your work at Nexus?" He hesitated just a fraction too long. "Nothing relevant to this. Don't lie to me." The irony of my demand wasn't lost on me. I, who had hidden my own family secrets for years. Jack sighed heavily. "The security breach at Nexus is worse than I initially told you. We believe design specifications for the encryption system have already been compromised. What they're after now is the implementation codes, the actual keys to the system. Only 3 people have complete access. I'm one of them." The revelation hung between us like a physical presence. "Why didn't you tell me?" "National security protocols. I'm breaking federal law just telling you now." He met my eyes. "But you deserve to know why we're targets." A text alert interrupted us. Detective Harmon requesting an urgent call. Jack put her on speaker. "We've intercepted communications suggesting an operation is imminent," she said without preamble. "Something called Sightline scheduled to execute within 48 hours. We believe it's targeting Nexus systems, specifically the new satellite encryption project. Jack's face went pale. How did you? Your director at Nexus has been briefed. They're implementing emergency protocols. Her voice turned grave. But there's something else. The communications mentioned a family leverage point being in place. We believe that refers to your parents, Mrs. Carter. There's a high probability they're being held somewhere against their will. The room seemed to tilt around me. Where? Can you find them? We're working on it. Their home in Rhode Island appears abandoned, but recently so. Stay where you are and maintain full security precautions. We'll post additional officers near your location. After she disconnected, I turned to Jack, a decision already forming. I need to try contacting my mother directly, I said. If she's trying to warn me, she might respond. Absolutely not, Jack replied immediately. You could expose our location or put them in more danger, or I could get information that helps save them and us. I stood my ground. I know my mother, Jack. Even after everything, I know how she thinks. If she's leaving breadcrumbs, I'm the one most likely to follow them correctly. Our argument continued in circles until exhaustion forced a stalemate. That night, while Jack slept, I sent a carefully worded email to my mother's personal account, one I'd never deleted from my contacts despite years of silence. The message contained references only she would understand, including mention of a special birthday tradition from my childhood. If she responded, I would know it was really her. If someone else controlled her accounts, the significance would be lost on them. By morning, I had a reply. Wildflowers still bloom by the lake house dock. Remember the blue canoe? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The lake house had been our summer retreat sold after my parents' financial disgrace. The blue canoe was where I'd hidden as a child during games, and later where I'd retreat to read and escape family tensions. My mother was suggesting a meeting at Jackson's Lake Park, near a blue rental boat dock, at 2 the next day. I deleted the email and said nothing to Jack. For the first time in our marriage, I was going to deliberately deceive him. The weight of that decision sat heavily on my conscience, but the alternative, doing nothing while my parents remained in danger, felt impossible to accept. Sometimes, I reasoned, you have to choose between bad options to prevent worse outcomes. It was a justification my parents might have used, and that irony wasn't lost on me either. The following day unfolded with excruciating slowness. Jack worked from Tara's home office while I pretended to read, watching the clock crawl toward 2 p.m. I'd fabricated a migraine as excuse to retreat to our bedroom occasionally, using those moments to plan my escape. At 12:30, I claimed my headache was worsening and needed to lie down in the darkened bedroom. Jack brought me water and pain relievers, his concern genuine. His gentle kiss on my forehead nearly broke my resolve. Was I making a terrible mistake? But the memory of that threatening email strengthened my determination. 20 minutes later, I slipped out through the bathroom window, dropping quietly into the side yard where hedges provided cover from the street. The plainclothes officer was stationed at the front of the property, his attention focused on approaching vehicles. I cut through neighboring backyards until reaching a parallel street, then called a rideshare using a temporary account I'd created that morning. By 1:30, I was approaching Jackson's Lake Park, heart pounding against my ribs. The park was busy with midday visitors, families picnicking, joggers circling the path, elderly couples feeding ducks. Normal life continuing while mine spiraled into espionage territory. I made my way to the blue-painted boat rental dock, scanning faces for my mother. Claudia. The voice came from behind me. I turned to find my mother sitting on a bench, partially hidden by ornamental grasses. Eleanor Wright looked thinner than I remembered, her once perfect blonde hair now showing silver roots, her designer clothes replaced by a nondescript gray sweater and jeans. But her eyes, calculating, intelligent eyes that had always seen too much, remained unchanged. Mom. The word felt foreign after so many years. You shouldn't have come, she said immediately. But I'm glad you did. I sat beside her, maintaining distance. What's happening? Are you and Dad in danger? We've made some poor associations. A shadow of her old wry smile appeared. Worse than usual, I mean. Eastern Continental Investments? Her eyebrows rose slightly. You've been investigating. Always the thorough one. Mom, I received a package. We didn't send it, she interrupted. They did, using our names to make sure you'd accept it. But it was meant as surveillance. She nodded, eyes constantly scanning our surroundings. They wanted information about Jack's work. Access to your home systems. When the initial surveillance showed he was being careful with his devices, they decided more direct pressure was needed. Through you and Dad. We made ourselves vulnerable. For the first time, regret showed plainly on her face. After the difficulties. With our previous business, we needed new connections. Viktor Petrov approached with opportunities that seemed legitimate. By the time we realized what we'd stepped into, it was too late. What do they want from you? Your father's financial expertise to move money undetected. My client relationships to establish new fronts. She lowered her voice further. And leverage over you and Jack. They believe he has access codes they need. He does, I admitted. For a military satellite encryption system. Her face tightened. Then you're in more danger than I thought. These people, they're not just corporate spies, Claudia. There are government interests involved. Foreign intelligence services. Where's Dad? Safe for now. We've been separated for security. She reached into her pocket and palmed something to me, a small USB drive. Everything we've gathered is here. Account numbers, communications, names. Enough to expose the entire operation. I closed my fingers around it. Why give this to me? Why not go directly to the FBI? Because we're implicated in enough illegal activity to spend the rest of our lives in prison. The old self-interest surfaced in her expression. We need immunity arrangements. Protection. You have connections now through Jack's work that can make that happen. Of course. Even now, my parents were working angles, seeking advantage. Some things never changed. There's something else, my mother continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. We think there's someone inside Nexus helping them. Someone with direct access to Jack's work. Before I could ask more, her gaze fixed on something over my shoulder. Her face drained of color. They've found us. Go now. Different direction than me. She stood quickly. Trust no one completely, Claudia. Not even. She hurried away without finishing, disappearing into a group of tourists. Looking back, I glimpsed a man in a dark jacket following her path, his movement purposeful. I clutched the drive and walked briskly toward the park exit, fighting the urge to run. By the time I reached the street, my phone was buzzing with texts and missed calls from Jack. The latest simply read, "Where are you? Police searching. Come home now." I took another rideshare back to Tara's neighborhood but had it drop me 2 blocks away. Approaching cautiously, I noticed immediately that something was wrong. The plainclothes officer was no longer at his post, and the front door stood partially open. Inside, the pristine living room had been ransacked. Furniture overturned, drawers emptied, even air vents removed from walls. Jack was standing in the center of the destruction, phone pressed to his ear, his face a mask of barely controlled panic that transformed to fury when he saw me. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded, ending his call. "I thought they'd taken you too." "Too? What happened here?" "Someone broke in while I was on a conference call. Professional job." He gestured to the chaos. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Which was? My work, laptop, secure phone, access credentials. His voice cracked slightly. "I thought it was you they'd taken. Why did you leave? Where were you?" The anger and fear in his eyes made me hesitate. Could I trust him completely with what my mother had told me? With her warning about someone inside Nexus? "I went to meet my mother," I admitted finally. "She contacted me yesterday." His expression hardened. "Behind my back. After everything we discussed. She gave me evidence, Jack." I showed him the USB drive. Names, accounts, details of the entire operation targeting your work. Or it's malware designed to breach security when plugged into a connected system. He reached for it. Give it to me. We need to turn this over to security professionals. I pulled back instinctively. My mother said there might be someone inside Nexus working with them. We need to be careful who we trust. Jack's face flushed with anger. So you'll trust your criminal parents over me? Over the authorities who are trying to protect us? That's not what I'm saying, isn't it? He stepped closer. Your parents have manipulated you your entire life, Claudia. They're doing it again, and you're falling for it. The accusation stung because it contained a kernel of truth. Were my parents using me again? Was the USB drive a trap? We should at least examine it carefully before handing it over, I insisted. Our argument escalated until Detective Harmon arrived with additional officers to secure the scene. She listened grimly to our competing explanations. Both of you need to come with me immediately, she said finally. This location is completely compromised. Mrs. Carter, I'll need that drive for evidence. I hesitated, then surrendered it to her. Please be careful with it. My parents may be in immediate danger. We'll do everything possible to locate them, she assured me. But right now, my priority is keeping you two alive, and the security codes protected. As we were escorted to separate police vehicles, Jack's expression remained closed and angry. For the first time since our marriage, a chasm had opened between us, one filled with suspicion and unspoken accusations. I wondered if we could ever bridge it again, or if my family legacy had finally destroyed the one true relationship I'd managed to build. The safe house Detective Harmon brought us to was a nondescript ranch-style home in a quiet neighborhood outside Hartford. Plain furniture, reinforced doors, and minimal windows created an environment that was secure but oppressively institutional. You'll remain here under protection while we analyze the USB drive and continue investigating, she informed us. 2 officers will be stationed outside at all times. Jack and I were given separate bedrooms, his choice, not mine. The emotional distance between us had solidified into physical separation. He spent hours on secure calls with his Nexus superiors, emerging only for meals eaten in tense silence. On the second day, Detective Harmon returned with news. The drive contained legitimate financial records and communications, she confirmed. To my vindication, we've identified several shell companies and confirmed that Eastern Continental Investments is a front for foreign intelligence operations. And my parents? I asked. Still missing. But we have new leads based on the financial trails. She hesitated. There's something else. The drive also contained personnel files from Nexus Systems' internal documents that should be highly restricted. Jack looked up sharply. Which ones? Security clearance records, duty rosters, access logs. She met his gaze directly. Including yours, Mr. Carter. That's impossible, Jack protested. Those systems are completely isolated from outside networks, which supports your wife's concern about an inside collaborator. Detective Harmon turned to me. Did your mother mention any specific names? No. We were interrupted before she could tell me more. Jack paced the small living room. This makes no sense. The only people with access to those combined records would be senior security officers or... He stopped abruptly. Executive family members with clearance. Like your brother-in-law, Paul, I said, the pieces suddenly connecting. Jack shook his head vehemently. No. He works for a competing firm. He wouldn't have direct access. But Tara would, Detective Harmon interjected. As your sister and the spouse of a security professional, she could have been granted family clearance for certain facilities. And your home was compromised while you were staying with them. The implication hung heavily in the air. Jack's sister or her husband potentially involved in espionage against his company. Against him personally. We need proof before making accusations, Jack said. But doubt had crept into his voice. We're investigating both of them discreetly, Detective Harmon assured us. In the meantime, we've been authorized to share something with you. She opened her laptop and turned it toward us. This was captured yesterday by a security camera at Tara and Paul's house. The footage showed Paul escorting Tara from their home to a car, his hand gripping her arm with unmistakable force. Tara's face registered fear as she looked back at the house once before being pushed into the vehicle. "We believe Paul has taken Tara as leverage," Detective Harmon explained. "He knows we're closing in, and he's using her as insurance." Jack sank onto the couch, the color draining from his face. "Tara's innocent in this. She has to be." "Our current theory is that Paul recruited her unwittingly," the detective said gently. "She may have provided access or information without understanding its true purpose." I moved to sit beside Jack, tentatively placing my hand on his arm. To my relief, he didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He covered my hand with his. "I should be apologizing to you. You were right to meet your mother, right about the insider threat." Detective Harmon continued. "We've traced Paul's recent movements to a property in the Berkshires registered to one of the shell companies identified in your mother's files. We believe he may be holding Tara there, possibly your parents as well." "What's the plan?" Jack asked, professional focus returning to his voice. "We're preparing an operation to secure the location, but we need to be careful. If Paul realizes we're coming, he might destroy evidence or worse. He needs the security codes," Jack said. "The full implementation protocols for the encryption system. Without them, the design specifications are useless." "And those are only in your head?" I asked. "No. They're stored on a secure server at Nexus headquarters. Access requires physical presence, biometric confirmation, and two-factor authentication." He paused. "But there's a backup protocol in case of emergency. A verbal confirmation code that can be used for remote access." Detective Harmon's attention sharpened. "Does Paul know about this protocol?" "He shouldn't. It's restricted to the 3 primary system architects." Jack frowned. "But if he has access to internal security documents, then we need to assume he knows," the detective concluded, "and that he'll try to force you to use it." An idea began forming in my mind, something my mother had said about trust, combined with my knowledge of financial systems and security protocols. I'd spent years studying how people circumvent safeguards, how they exploit trust relationships to commit fraud. "I think I know how we can trap him," I said slowly. Both Jack and the detective turned to me with surprise. "We create a controlled vulnerability," I continued. "A security breach that looks real but is actually a trap." "What kind of breach?" Jack asked. "One that appeals to someone like Paul and the people he's working with. Their primary motivation is financial, right? The espionage is a means to that end." I leaned forward. "So we give them a glimpse of something even more valuable than military encryption. Something they can't resist." Detective Harmon was watching me with growing interest. "What did you have in mind?" "A fictitious funds transfer system. Something that appears to be moving billions between government accounts." I turned to Jack. "Could you create that kind of digital facade? Something that would look legitimate to someone with Paul's expertise?" Jack considered this. "Yes, I could build a simulation that would be convincing enough. If we route it through the same servers as the real encryption project, he'd think he'd discovered something bigger than his original target," I finished. "And we could build in trackers, alarms, whatever you need to locate and identify his access point." "It could work," Detective Harmon said slowly, "but it's risky. Paul is desperate now, which makes him unpredictable." "I understand my brother-in-law," Jack said with new determination. "I know how he thinks, what will appeal to him. Claudia's right money is his primary motivation. Always has been." The detective made several calls, consulting with her superiors and technical specialists. By evening, we had authorization to proceed with what was now being called Operation Counterfeit, my financial background, lending its terminology to the mission. Jack spent hours on secure channels with his Nexus colleagues, building the digital honeypot. I worked with Detective Harmon to create a convincing financial structure for the fictitious system, using my accounting knowledge to make the numbers and transactions appear legitimate. That night, Jack and I shared a room for the first time since arriving at the safe house. As we prepared for bed, the weight of recent revelations hung between us. "I should have trusted you," Jack said finally, breaking the silence. After everything with your parents, you still recognize the warning signs. You followed your instincts. I should have been more transparent with you, I countered. We're supposed to be partners. He took my hand, his expression solemn in the dim light. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I never doubted your loyalty, Claudia. Just your judgment about your parents. They're still manipulating situations to their advantage, I acknowledged. But this time, they're also trying to do the right thing. People can be complicated that way. Like Paul. Jack's voice tightened. I never saw it. We had him in our home, at our wedding. All that time he was cultivating connections, looking for opportunities. We'll get Tara back safely, I promised. And my parents, too. He nodded, but worry still creased his brow. The operation launches at dawn. We should get some sleep. As I drifted toward unconsciousness, I realized something had shifted between us. The crisis had exposed vulnerabilities in our relationship, but also revealed strengths we hadn't recognized before. Jack's technical brilliance complemented my intuitive understanding of human motivation and financial systems. Together, we made a formidable team. And tomorrow, we would need every advantage that partnership offered. Morning arrived with a flurry of activity. Technical teams established command posts in the safe house while tactical units prepared for deployment to the Berkshires property. Jack and I were fitted with secure communications equipment and bulletproof vests, precautionary measures that made the danger frighteningly tangible. The digital honeypot is active, Jack reported after a final check with his Nexus team. If anyone accesses the system, we'll know exactly where they are and what they're seeing. Detective Harmon nodded approval. Now we need to make sure Paul knows it exists. Mrs. Carter, are you ready? I took a deep breath. My role was critical. I would make a seemingly careless call to my office, mentioning the special transfer protocols Jack had been working on. The call would be routed through systems we knew were compromised, ensuring Paul would intercept it. I'm ready, I confirmed, although my racing heart suggested otherwise. The call went according to script. I left a vague but enticing message for my supervisor about checking the financial projections for Jack's new government transfer system before ending with a reference to its massive processing capacity for Treasury-level transactions. Now we wait, Detective Harmon said after I hung up. If Paul takes the bait, he'll need to access the Nexus servers directly, or force Jack to do it for him. The wait was excruciating. Hours crawled by without activity. Had we miscalculated? Was Paul too cautious to respond so quickly? Just after noon, Jack's secure tablet lit up with an alert. We've got a hit. Someone's attempting to access the honeypot remotely. The technical team sprang into action, tracing the intrusion attempt. Within minutes, they had confirmation. The access point was indeed the Berkshires property we'd identified. They've taken the bait, Jack said with grim satisfaction. Now they'll need the authentication codes. As if on cue, Jack's phone rang an unknown number. He answered on speaker. Jack. Paul's voice was unnaturally calm. I believe you have something I need. Paul, where's my sister? Safe. For now. A pause. I'm more interested in this transfer system you've been keeping secret. Not part of our original arrangement, but certainly valuable. I don't know what you're talking about, Jack replied, following our script. Don't insult me. We intercepted your wife's message. Paul's tone hardened. I need the authentication codes for remote access. Provide them within 1 hour, and Tara goes free. Refuse, and... He left the threat unspoken but clear. I need proof she's alive and unharmed, Jack insisted. There was movement on the line, then Tara's voice, shaking but determined. Jack, don't give him anything. He's working with... Her words cut off abruptly. Paul returned. 1 hour. I'll text instructions for the code delivery. The call ended. Jack looked to Detective Harmon, who was already coordinating with tactical teams through her radio. Units are in position surrounding the property, she reported. Thermal imaging confirms 4 individuals inside. Likely Paul, Tara, and your parents. We need to proceed carefully. The plan evolved rapidly. Jack would provide altered authentication codes, ones that would appear to work initially but would trigger security lockdowns and give us access to Paul's systems. I would accompany Detective Harmon to a command post near the property, where my knowledge of my parents might prove useful if negotiations became necessary. As we prepared to leave, Jack pulled me aside. "Be careful," he said, his voice tight with worry. "Paul is desperate. That makes him dangerous." "You too," I replied, squeezing his hand. "Remember, he doesn't know what we know. That gives us leverage." The drive to the Berkshires took 40 agonizing minutes. The property came into view as we crested a wooded hill, a modern vacation home with expansive windows overlooking a small lake. Deceptively peaceful. From the mobile command center established in a park ranger station, we watched surveillance feeds showing tactical teams in position around the perimeter. Jack was connected via secure video from the safe house, prepared to provide the modified access codes when Paul made contact. At precisely 1 hour from his call, Paul texted as promised. Jack began the authentication sequence, narrating each step to the technical team monitoring the exchange. On our screens, we could see the honeypot system registering the access attempt, tracking Paul's digital footprint as he navigated what he believed was a revolutionary funds transfer system. "He's in," Jack confirmed, moving exactly where we predicted. Detective Harmon gave the signal. "All units, prepare to execute on my mark." I watched the thermal imaging display showing the 4 figures inside the house. One remained stationary in what appeared to be a bedroom, likely Tara, possibly restrained. 2 others sat in the main living area. The 4th Paul paced near a computer setup. "Target is distracted with the system access," reported a tactical team leader. "Optimal entry conditions." "Execute," Detective Harmon commanded. What followed was a precisely choreographed operation. Tactical teams breached the property simultaneously from multiple entry points. On the thermal display, we watched the heat signatures responding to the intrusion movement. Confusion, then stillness, as the subjects were secured. "All targets in custody," came the report minutes later. 2 hostages secured. No casualties. Relief washed over me. My parents? Tara? All appear unharmed. Medical is assessing them now. Detective Harmon turned to me with a rare smile. "Your plan worked, Mrs. Carter. Preliminary reports indicate Paul was working with Eastern Continental for over 2 years. He recruited inside help at Nexus, using financial incentives. Not Tara? Initial indications are that she was unaware until recently. When she discovered what was happening, he took her hostage to ensure her silence." I closed my eyes briefly, grateful that Jack wouldn't lose his sister to betrayal as well as to crime. The aftermath unfolded with surprising speed. Paul and 3 Eastern Continental operatives were taken into custody. My parents, though initially detained for questioning, provided extensive cooperation in exchange for consideration in their sentencing. The evidence they'd gathered, combined with the materials on the USB drive, helped dismantle a significant portion of the espionage network targeting American technology companies. 1 week later, Jack and I stood in our living room, fully swept for surveillance devices, and declared clean. The familiar space felt different now, imbued with memories of danger but also of resilience. "Nexus offered me a promotion," Jack said as we unpacked essentials. "Head of counterintelligence for the security division." "That's wonderful," I replied, genuinely pleased for him. "You deserve it after everything that's happened. There's more." He hesitated. "They also asked about you. Your financial expertise and instincts for security vulnerabilities impressed them. They're creating a new position, financial security oversight, and want to know if you'd be interested." I paused, surprised by the offer. "Working together? Different departments, but yes, essentially." He smiled. "We make a good team, it turns out." The opportunity was unexpected but appealing. My accounting work had always felt like atonement for my parents' financial crimes. This would transform that mission into something more proactive, preventing exploitation, rather than just avoiding it. I'd like that, I decided. A fresh start for both of us. Later that evening, As we prepared for bed, Jack brought up the subject we'd both been avoiding. "Your parents' sentencing hearing is next month," he said carefully. "Will you attend?" I considered the question. My parents had finally faced consequences for their actions, but they'd also taken significant risks to protect me in the end. The relationship remained complicated, fraught with painful history, but no longer felt poisonous. "Yes," I said finally. "I think I need to be there. For closure, if nothing else." Jack nodded understanding. "And after that? Do you want them in our lives going forward?" "In a limited way," I decided, "with clear boundaries. People can change, not completely, but meaningfully. I think they've taken steps in that direction." 1 month later, I sat in a federal courthouse as my parents received reduced sentences in exchange for their cooperation. 5 years rather than 20. When permitted to speak, my father expressed remorse not just for his recent actions but for the patterns of deception that had defined his career and damaged his family. My mother, ever more perceptive, looked directly at me before being led away. "We're proud of who you became," she said simply. "Despite us, not because of us." It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation, but it was honest. Perhaps the first truly honest exchange we'd had since I was 16. The following weekend, we hosted a small gathering at our home. Jack's sister Tara, recovering well from her ordeal, my friend Megan, who had helped piece together the financial evidence, and Detective Harmon, now promoted for her role in dismantling the espionage ring. As we shared a meal together, I reflected on the journey that had begun with a mysterious birthday package and led to this moment of hard-won peace. The damaged relationships might never fully heal, but something new and stronger had emerged from the wreckage of old deceptions. "A toast," Jack proposed, raising his glass. "To seeing things clearly even when they're hidden in plain sight." The words resonated deeply. Throughout my life, I'd struggled with vision, seeing my parents for who they truly were, recognizing threats disguised as gifts, distinguishing between manipulation and genuine change. I'd learned that clarity comes not just from observation but from courage, the willingness to look unflinchingly at difficult truths and act on them decisively. "To clarity," I agreed, meeting each person's eyes around the table, "and to second chances, when they're truly earned." As conversation flowed around me, I silently added my own private toast to the unexpected gift that had come wrapped in danger, the discovery that I was stronger than I knew, capable of facing my past without being defined by it, and ready to build a future based on truth rather than deception. Some birthdays mark more than the passing of years. They become thresholds to new chapters, unexpected beginnings disguised as endings. My 32nd birthday had been such a milestone, the day I stopped running from my family legacy and instead used it to protect what mattered most. What's your relationship like with your family? Have you ever had to set boundaries with loved ones who hurt you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that second chances are possible, even after years of pain. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you clarity and courage on your own path forward.